Welcome to my channel, Crochet with Komeh. Today we're going to be dressing up this pink plush baby blanket made with the star stitch, and we're going to be putting a pink bow applique in the corner for baby. We're using the same kind of yarn used to make the blanket, and that's the Big Twist plush yarn. Using the color Dusty Rose, and you'll need a 9mm crochet hook today, a little bit smaller than what it indicates on the yarn. You'll also need a darning needle, a pair of scissors, and some pins to hold that applique in place while we're stitching it on. Stay tuned and I'll also show you a hack to help you put that on without it showing through on the back side too. To do this is going to vary in chain length, but we're going to begin with making the loops of the bow. And I'm looking to do a diagonal corner placement at approximately 7 inches. So what I'll need to make is I'll need to chain double the length of that. I'll need to chain 14 inches. And this is going to vary for everybody's project, how many to chain. Just depends on how long you're going. All right, we'll do a chain until we reach our desired length of 14 inches. If you're a person who doesn't like to count stitches, this is the project for you. It's all about measurements. And you're just going to repeat rows. That's looking about the right length. Let's give that a check. Oh, 2 more inches to go. And there it is. Exactly 14 inches. So I'm going to build up 1 more stitch because this will be my turn. And my base chain for this bow, let's double check here and make sure we're going to like the sizing. That's going to be just right for width. Be 7 inches wide. We needed 14 inches of a chain, and we have exactly that. For this plush yarn and the 9mm hook, that was 28 chains. And now we're ready to begin our second row. The second row is a single crochet stitch in the second chain from the hook is where you'll begin. And then all the way down to the end. That's 1, 2, 26, and 27. For this pattern, it's a chain 1 and turn. We're not going to count that turning chain as a stitch. And again, I'll kind of double check, show you how here when we end up looping this up, it'll be approximately that size. Still liking how that looks. That's a good way to measure before you get too far in your project. And this, you can see how quickly this works up. This is just simply the chain and 1 row of single crochet. So I think we'll only need to go 3 rows wide here. Beginning the second row, not counting our turning chain, we're going to start in the very first stitch here and do another row of single crochets. (26) and 27. Again, to go on to the third row, it's a chain 1 and turn your work. You can see this is what it's looking like after 2 rounds. I do want to add some more thickness to the bow. I'm going to do 1 more row yet. Beginning again in the very first stitch. and continuing all the way across. I don't know about y'all, I love the feel of this yarn, but I only like to unwind a little bit at a time because it sure loves to get tangled. Also, for those of you that love the Big Twist brand, I know we were all mourning the loss of Joann's, but I did see an article that said that Michaels was going to pick up the Big Twist brand, so hopefully we'll see this yarn back in our craft stores soon. Not only is it sweet for making baby blankets, I do like using it to make stuffed animal toys. 26 and 27. I'm going to only be going 3 rows across for my bow on this blanket. So at this point I'm going to bind off, but I am going to leave a bit of a tail because I'm going to use it to sew the seams together. I'm always a little generous with how much I leave. I like to have some extra. So I've gone as much as 2 feet here, knowing that I have plenty remaining. And for those of you not familiar with how to bind off, it's simply a chain 1, and then you just pull your yarn through that chain and give it a tug. So now I have my original tail and my long one for sewing. Oh yes, I definitely went overboard there, but that's all right. And now we're going to choose what we decide is the best looking part of the work, the right side of the work, if you will, and we're going to seam it on the reverse side. So hopefully that whip stitch we're going to use to join these together doesn't show through quite as much. So ugly side out, and we'll go ahead and get this onto a darning needle and we'll whip stitch that together. Here we go. And whip stitch it together. I'm going to start across, come back again into that very first stitch, opposite side. This plus yarn, it disappears really well. Come back into the next stitch, match that up with the stitch across. And the third. And even though we only had those 3 rows of single crochets, I'm still going to catch our initial chain as well. Corner here. There's a total of 4 whip stitches across. Okay, at this point, I've got that seamed together. After you've made a seam with a whip stitch, you're ready to make a knot across here and just pull under. And this tail we're going to weave through. So I'm going to do it again. I'm on the wrong side of the project facing out. So when I weave through, I like to grab a few stitches one direction, come back the opposite direction, a few more stitches, trying to catch just the loop that's on the wrong side of the pattern. A few of those this direction, and then we'll do one final pass back, go in the original direction under a few more stitches. With this initial tail, we're going to use that to tie the center. So the seam side here, go ahead and turn it to the right side. And the seam is going to be the middle of the back of our bow. So go ahead and place that in the center point there. You can eyeball it or you can measure if you're unsure if you've got exactly the center point. Here we eyeballed it pretty well, 3.5 inches. And we're gonna pinch, put your finger in the middle and pinch the bow together. And then this little tail can tie and hold that in place. Now, obviously that's not what we're gonna leave as our center of the bow, but it'll hold it in place and we're gonna put a prettier center point on later. Then pull that tight. and that's going to hold that bow. Now we're ready to make the tails for the bow, and I'm going to be doing approximately 10 inches for mine. To make the tails, we're simply going to chain 10 inches and go back through with a single crochet. And 20 there. And as I check, yes, that puts me right at 10 inches with room for the turn. It is about 2 chains per inch with this type of thick plush yarn and a 9mm hook. So we're ready, just like we had done previously when making the bow. We're going to begin in the second chain from the hook and single crochet back to the start. And we're back at the start. For this one, there's going to be no use for these tails, so we're just going to do a normal cut and bind off. 4 inches or so, whatever you feel comfortable using to weave back in. And for binding off, remember it's a chain and pull through. So now I have what I'm going to use for the tails of my bow. This bow is constructed in 3 parts. You've made the bow loops, and now you've made the tails, and the way that this will ultimately work is you'll fold in the middle, kind of cross over like that, right? That's going to go behind your bow, and then we'll next make our middle piece that's going to bind that all together, okay? And of course you can make your tails longer if you prefer a longer look, or if you want to kind of weave them around and make some pretty S shapes, you would want to go a little longer. Here I'm just doing a basic straight bow for this baby blanket. So 10 inches was sufficient, and our next step now is to make the center. I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing I just did for the tails to do the center of our bow. And when I'm measuring out what that'll be, because I am going to pull it tight. So I'm just taking the end of my yarn, coming across, wrapping it around till I come just completely around. Pinch that, see what that measures out to. And I come out to 4 inches. So that's what I'm going to make, just 4 inches. And keep in mind that's going to go around the thickness of the tails as well. So I'm going to do 4 inches of a chain and a single crochet, and then I'll meet you back there. We'll have all 3 parts of our bow, and we'll be ready to put this together. And the fun part of then doing the applique and sewing it onto the blanket, and doing that in an invisible way too, so you won't see it show through on the other side of your blanket. And there's the last stitch. Cut and bind. Okay, now my next step, I have some tail weaving to do here. I do want to leave myself one of these strings on the back of my bow center so that I can sew it up around the bow for security. But the rest of these tails, those can go. So I'll join you back after I've wove those in. Again, I'm weaving in everything but my longest tail on my bow center. I've weaved in all of the tails necessary. Now I have my 3 parts of my bow, the tails, the loops, and the center tie with 1 tail attached to do closure. Okay. Before I put this bow all together, I do want to make sure I've got my needle already ready to go on this tail. And for those of you who might have been struggling a little bit with getting plush yarn through a darning needle, it can be tricky. I like to fold my yarn, kind of pull it over the needle to do that. And then over the crease of the yarn, I do a little wiggle back and forth, and that tends to help me workmanship through. Okay, so now we're ready for assembly. I do have this tail folded at the center point in half, and I'm going to place that behind my bow. Spread those out a little bit. And now I'm taking the center point of my bow. I'm going to take the very end, that's going to be in the back. Our seam, of course, will be in the back. Wrapping it around the front. Bringing it to the back. Here's where the action's going to happen. Okay, we're coming over the tails, over the loops, and then these two ends, we're going to be joining them together right now. Here we go. Whip stitch will be just fine, like you did to sew the seams of the loops prior. And 3 to 4 of those should be sufficient. We're ready to do it. I'm going to flip it to the front here. Just make sure I like how tight it is first. Okay, that's looking a little loose. So I do want to make mine tighter. I am going to have kind of the 3D bow effect there, but if I have a tighter center, then I can get a little more dimension and pucker there. So I will pull this a wee bit tighter. And just stitch in a little more than that. Once you have the center of your bow how you like it, you're ready to make a knot and secure that on the back. Nobody's ever going to see the back of your bow, so it doesn't have to be a thing of beauty like the front. In fact, you can pull that tight, give that a tug. Truly, it would probably be up to you whether you really want to weave this tail in or just leave a little bit there would be fine as well. Okay. Now we're ready for the applique portion. So placement, of course, is going to be key. You're going to want your straight pins available. And I like for the tails to stop before it reaches the border of the work. And on this star stitch blanket, this just has a simple 2 single crochet border. You can see it comes to here and here. So I'm going to begin by placing my tails where I want them, and then I'll position my bow from there. There's 2 pins there to hold the tails in place, and I'm making sure I like where my center of my bow is lying. And this is intended to be a 3D bow, so I'm completely comfortable with how it's popping off the blanket. I can imagine this being fun for baby to reach and grab and touch. Okay, so I'm going to just pin. I'm not going to pin the top loop down. Okay, this isn't a situation where I want to put it flat to the blanket. You might like to do that. I'm going to leave some loops up here for baby to play with. So for me, I'm just going to be pinning down the bottom loops of the bow. Symmetry is a thing of importance to you. You can, of course, measure across your bow and do some placement measurements to ensure that you are indeed center point. And it's looking good. So I'm going to turn my blanket, pin down the back side of each loop. So I'm placing a pin on either side. look. Also going to secure the center. Okay, we are now ready to do the applique portion. Now for this, it is a sewing job. We'll begin down here on the tail of the bow and work our way around. Okay, here is where the secret comes. You don't want to poke your yarn all the way through to the back side, because then on the back side of the blanket, you're going to see the stitching. The key to making this a beautiful applique is to only stitch into the front loops of the blanket. So I'll show you what I mean right now. I'm going to grab a loop in the blanket underneath. Actually, I'm going to move in a little bit further because I'm going to tuck the tails to begin here. Grab. There we go. Up through the bow. This will be where I'll tie off our end and weave that back through. So let's do a half knot here. And then another half knot here. And I'll weave that tail in as soon as we work our way around. Okay, now that I've got my end secured, I'm ready to sew. Again, pulling only a front loop from that blanket, going through the outer edge of the stitch. And we are not going to do a whip stitch with this one, okay? You are going to want to weave in and out instead. Your standard sewing stitch, if you will. As I move around the work making the stitches, I'm trying to grab loops that are underneath the applique and not out here on the sides so that you don't see that pull. So when I come down into the work, I'm going to look a little bit underneath to grab that loop. Pulling my tail through to secure. And really with every single stitch, I'm checking to see if I like the visual placement of that. I've made my way around attaching the bow, coming out here the other side of the loop, and check this out. You can see that you see absolutely nothing on the back side of the blanket. That's the trick of grabbing those front loops. And just patience, checking each stitch as you come through. Grabbing the top loop only of a stitch, pulling through, back up through your work. Moving those pins as we encounter them. I'm about ready to secure this. Making sure I grab a different loop for my next stitch. And coming down through both the tail and the bow, grabbing a stitch underneath of it all. Again, checking that I'm not coming through on the back side. And I'm going to be doing a bind off right here underneath the bow, tucking back under, pulling that snug, and that'll hide underneath the tail. I'm going to weave that back through and then show you the finished product. And there you have it, your finished pink bow applique on this baby blanket with absolutely no show through on the back side. I hope you enjoyed making this project with me today. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe and enjoy your new preppy pink bow baby blanket. Thanks for watching.